This episode of Inquire brought to you by Brescia University.
And welcome, I'm Don Wilkins, and with me is Freddie Bourne, my co-host and producer, and today's guests are Lucas Daunhauer and Daylin Tolgo, and they're both with the Owensboro Davis County Convention and Visitors Bureau. We'll get into exactly what they do there. Freddie, are these the youngest folks we've had on the show?
I have not asked their ages, so I would not know.
They certainly look like they're the youngest.
Yeah, I haven't asked. I think we might be close in age. I'm not entirely sure. I think I've been the youngest, but I will say I think I've been probably at this point the youngest person in this room at this point in time, up until today.
I know I caught you off guard because I usually...
Yeah, I'm usually not on mic until hours later.
Yeah.
Or what feels like hours, depending.
So Lucas and Daylin, I appreciate you guys coming on this morning. And,
thank you.
And talking about what you guys, because I know, tourism is something that we've been doing here for several years now, and a big focus. We've always sort of done it, but it's now really become a big deal. And so especially, and what we're going to talk about in some degree is the sports tourism part of it, which is pretty interesting. And I know that has over the years has grown, here in Owensboro, and so. But you guys, feel free to talk about whatever kind of tourism. Yeah. There may be some tourism out there that we're doing that I'm not aware of, and so that's part of this conversation as well. So, but first, I'm going to let you guys kind of give your backgrounds and kind of let folks know how you got here, how you got to be with the with the Visitors Bureau, and so whichever one of you wants to go first.
So I am from Evansville, Indiana. That's where I was born and raised, and then.
So we have to go over there to the mall.
Yeah.
So that's what everybody knows Evansville for. They got a good mall.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. No, it's close enough. I like I'm only 50 minutes from home, and vice versa for my parents to come see me. So I took this job in September, but I had previous ties to Owensboro. So I did my undergrad at Kentucky Wesleyan College. I played soccer there, and I honestly have to give credit to my sister for the reason I went to Kentucky Wesleyan College. She went there and played softball, and she was a senior when I was a freshman, so that was a fun connection to have. So I was at Wesleyan for 3 years, finished my undergrad, and then went to Syracuse University, got a master's degree there, and was playing on their soccer team, and then continued pursuing soccer after college and my studies, played overseas for a little bit, and then came back partially into 2025. And then in September of 2025 was lucky enough to get offered this opportunity to work with the Visitors Bureau. And I work in sports destination development. That's my official title. So a lot of it is working with either outside sporting groups that bring events into our town, or our local sporting groups and our local community that is putting events on in athletics that bring people in. So a lot of that has to do with working with the Parks Department, with our local facilities at the Convention Center, and our local schools as well, high schools and colleges. So I had some ties to Owensboro prior. I'm really happy to be back in the community. It's a fun, vibrant community. It's not too different from Evansville, but there's a little little things that distinguish between the two of them.
Yeah.
They're unique in their own ways, and I really enjoy. I've learned so much about it throughout my first 8 or 9 months in this role, and the team has helped me learn about that. And the more you know about the community, the better you're able to sell it and implement things into it. So, I feel like I've grown a lot, but I'm excited to see what's ahead. So that's a little bit about myself.
Yeah, here's a fun fact for you. Because you're from Evansville and you're familiar with the Ford Center, right?
Yes, sir.
So what people may not realize that for what it cost to build the Ford Center, they pretty much built the whole downtown, which included the convention center down there, which is kind of crazy to kind of think about. You have one building there, but you have all this downtown there that cost about the same amount of money. Maybe I think the Ford Center maybe even cost a little bit more money in a place that you can't really access, on a daily basis, where the riverfront and even convention centers you can. So I like to, when we don't hear as much negativity about what was spent down there on the riverfront now than we used to. So if you spend any time here, back whenever they were doing that, you heard a lot of that, and maybe even your boss Mark Calitri has kind of told you some stories about it and everything. But nonetheless, just because you have that connection to Evansville, I thought you might find that interesting if you didn't already know about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And as someone who kind of came in from the outside with some ties to this, I always, I hope people in Owensboro don't take the downtown area for granted, because it's very well done, it's very well kept, and it's clean, it's nice. And like you said, one really interesting thing to point out is everything's very accessible. A lot of the stuff in the downtown area is very hands-on, and not every city's like that. Especially, there's so many places in Owensboro you can go for free. And so, that's something that I hope people really appreciate, because I know when people come in from out of town and out of state, Daylin and I are used to hearing, they're like, man, we don't have anything like this in our city.
Like,
so.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, there is a tourism aspect to that, even though it was built with local taxpayer money and people in the community all can enjoy it. But whenever people come in town, one of the first questions I ask them is, "Have you gone downtown yet?"
Yeah.
To the riverfront. So yeah, I guess you're up next.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Huntsville, Alabama. So I came here for Wesleyan. I was recruited to the college bowling team that Wesleyan had at one point. They don't have it anymore, but I started there on the bowling team. That's the reason why I came, and graduated from Wesleyan with a communications degree. And directly after I graduated, I started working at the Visitors Bureau. I actually had the opportunity because I interned with them the year prior. So I've been there for about a year, almost and a half now. But that's kind of how I started, and the reason why I stayed is because I met my fiance. So we decided to stay in Owensboro. We thought it was the perfect opportunity for us to kind of grow. I think Owensboro it's a good town to grow a family, but also kind of to get your bearings. I feel like the tax bracket that Owensboro is in is a much easier place to live in than any other place. It's just easier to kind of, as a young adult, get your bearings. I know a lot of older individuals live in Owensboro, but I think the number of younger individuals is growing, which is really nice. But at Visit Owensboro, I do marketing and services, so I do a little bit of everything. Obviously, all of the marketing, but I always dabble in helping Lucas or helping Teresa in our office. Like this weekend, I'm running Barbecue and Barrels, our bourbon event, which is a really big thing, but we also have a hand in like Romp. We help them market, but we also have a visitor's tent there. So we do lots of things.
Yeah, well, I'm still stuck on the bowling part. So
Yeah.
what's your bowling average?
Well, when I was in college, it was like a 180, I think 190, which
Okay.
is fairly good for a college bowler. It always kind of just depends.
I'm impressed because I was, if I do like a 60,
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Hey, I mean, bowling is very much a leisure kind of like entertainment sport. It's not really like a sport in general. Like Lucas, obviously, soccer is like a sport.
You
Like
have to downplay what you do. But I will say that is one thing, because I've had friends who do similar things where you're always going to, like, people will compare themselves to you
Yeah.
because it's something they've done in their leisure time. But,
Right.
like, I don't think anyone ever does that in soccer, for example.
Right, yeah,
so.
exactly. So it's like it's kind of hard to be like, yeah, bowling is a sport when people do it for like entertainment purposes, But it takes just as much time and effort that any other sport does. I mean, you still have to learn all of the things behind bowling and all of the tactics.
So have you seen like all the, I don't know how many bowling movies there are, but Kingpin,
Of course, the big ones.
That's such a great movie. I wouldn't recommend it for young viewers, but it's a
It's
great.
definitely a good watch.
Yeah.
That's for sure. It's
You're a bowl
entertaining.
300.
I have not. I'm not that good. I'll get there eventually one day.
I used to bowl. I was 12, 13 years old. I was actually
So
supposed
you
to.
look like the stereotypical bowler.
Yeah, but I'm the guy that was in a league. I was in the league that also. Yeah, the stereotype for me is I'll bowl and then go get some French fries, come back and bowl the same thing and not wash my hands. No, I was supposed to be. Yeah, you're not supposed to do
I
that,
always
and that's
joke
not ideal.
about that with you.
But
Enjoying bowling
that's
alley
a-
food and then going
yeah,
straight back
it
to the
is-
publicly
Nuh-uh.
used ball.
It's one of the very few sports you can somewhat randomly get away because it's part of the template of it,
yeah.
which is like there's a concession stand right there.
Yeah.
Like you're not in a dugout or anything or on the sidelines. You're in a bench or seats, and you're
Yeah.
like, well, it's right there. I was supposed to compete like in Indianapolis a couple years
yeah.
at the USA bowling.
Oh, yeah.
So I was good at on certain days.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
I would
that's
have
how it
like
always is.
I would have like 2 or 3 good games, and then they would submit that and be like, "Hey, you qualified to go to the competition." I'm like, I don't think you know what you're doing. Like I'm gonna fail if I go to Indianapolis. I ended up competing a couple times, not in Indianapolis, but like statewide in Jersey,
Yeah.
and then I did okay.
Yeah.
I had some. I'll just say that I had some good teammates. That's all I'll say.
Is there an equivalent
That
to
always
like a
helps.
handicap in golf for
Yeah.
bowling?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
Keep like
there
an
is.
average of your past teams.
Yeah.
or something.
Yep, that's actually how I got it.
Yeah,
because
I
of the
think-
handicap I had
Because
on
it's
those
like,
games.
I think it's your average minus like 200 or something
Yeah,
like that, I
something.
believe. So, and then that's the amount of pins that gets added to your amount of games. It's kind of confusing, but also in hindsight for bowlers, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there is a handicap.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
people, normally leagues, you'll have handicap, and that's the way that you lose.
See, our
Because,
Christmas party
you know-
is at the
Yeah.
bowling alley next.
Oh, yeah.
Right down the street.
Right down
yeah,
the
right
street,
down the street.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I mean, I embarrass myself every time, but anyway, it's cool. I enjoy playing, even though I'm very bad at it.
It's a camaraderie sport. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just like many things, but that definitely is like, you're literally waiting in anticipation,
Yes.
just like how you do, and then you have to turn back around. And if you're bad or if you don't do well,
Yeah.
you have to turn around and just
and
look at everyone
them-
and like,
yes.
The walk of shame back
The
to your
walk of
friends
shame.
when you just threw the ball in the gutter.
Man, and college bowling is really difficult when it comes to that because it's like we were taught that we're not allowed to walk off the lane and be disappointed about the shot that we threw. We have
Yeah.
to be like, yeah, it's fine.
You smile every time.
Yes, exactly.
yeah, just like,
Yeah,
job.
yep,
And
that's
I-
exactly it.
good effort.
Kind of a similar, I think a sport in the similar vein, which you guys, I'm assuming that's a part of what you guys promote, is the cornhole.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And I tell you, and Freddie has covered and filmed and talked with the cornhole folks.
Yeah, a few times.
It's one of my favorite things back when I used to actually do reporting, to go cover. Those people are just fun and great, and
Yes.
who knew? Because now, kind of like similar to bowling, there's like a whole separate industry of like carrying
Yes.
cases and the merch that comes with it, the extra. Who knew? So. I don't know how you compare that to other sports that you guys are recruiting, but it seems like they've done well here.
Yeah, it's a really fun culture, and I think the community has taken to it very well. even if it's just someone going out and enjoying an hour of the action every time they're in town. Like just for example, in this calendar year, they have 3 really big events with us here in Owensboro. We hope to continue to do that with them in the future. But yeah, it's a really fun culture, like you said. It's just cool to see something that we do leisurely in our backyard in the middle of the summer be played at such a crazy level. You'll walk in there and both people will throw all 4 in, and you're just like, all right, I can't do that.
Yeah, and they even like the bags, they'll have one side that's a little bit more stickier than the other, and then they have depending on, how I guess how the surfaces are for that particular day, and it's just become its own like little, industry, and that I don't know how long cornhole's been around, but I just thought it was pretty interesting, and how folks just talk about how they got into it. They went over to a buddy's house, having a backyard barbecue, and next thing you know, they're playing in tournaments.
Yeah.
So, it's not like bowling, where you have to actually, unless you're, rich, have a bowling alley in your house or something, you have to wait till the place is open,
Yeah, you can just practice in your backyard for cornhole. I think that's what's cool about Owensboro is we have so many unique sports that come to Owensboro. It's not just like, the regular basketball, softball, baseball kind of thing, which we have those, but we also have things like cornhole, and we have archery, for example, which I feel like is kind of different compared to other places. So I think we have a lot of variety that comes in, which keeps it fun for us, but also for the community itself.
And one thing that's there may be a I don't know when like Madison Square Garden was built, but the fact that we have like the Sports Center, which goes back to the late '40s, and then, and I guess you guys have been in there many times now, and then you see like all the performers, and I know that's not necessarily sports, but still, of course KWC plays basketball there. There's high school games there, but just the history of that building. And they have refurbished it over the years and everything, and now you guys are, which you want to talk about, the field house, which, I think you guys are probably thinking that's going to be a game changer.
It is, yeah.
Pun intended, I guess. So talk about the aspect of the sports center, and then the convention center, and then the field house, kind of how those 3 venues are going to, I guess, support all these different kinds of sports that are coming in and how they'll work together.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll go back to what you were saying about the Sports Center. First off, you do have to kind of acknowledge how special of a venue it is and the history that it has to it. Like you said, you could see some of either the performers that have been in the Sports Center or pretty high-level athletic events that have taken place there, and then will be there on a weekend putting an event on, and you're like, we're just Lucas and Daylin, and we're putting an event on in the same building where some big names have been. But
it goes from bull riding to like, music like Old 60. It's so awesome to see the differences.
We're going there, my wife and I, and we're going to go there to see a comedy show. Leanne?
Yeah, I've heard lots of
Morgan.
things.
Yeah, Leanne Morgan here. Morgan. Yeah. And there's not a bad seat there, at all. And so we're grew up there. Of course, when you're a kid, the thing looks huge when you're a kid, but when you've been to like the Yum Center and you realize, maybe
this is kind of small.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. That there's a certain like intimacy to the environment when it's a bit smaller and you're right there next to whatever's going on, whether it's a comedy act, a performance, or a basketball game. But yeah, no, I got kind of explained to me the history of how sports came to be in the convention center, about how when the convention center was first built, they didn't necessarily look at it as a sports venue. And then a few years down the road, they got the sports floor and they really saw things take off. And that what eventually led to the conversation of the field house. But the field house is, especially in sports tourism, a huge, huge asset for us to have. I think we have a lot of groups that have seen the potential of Owensboro and they've come here and they've grown in the convention center, in the sports center, or at any of the venues with our parks department. So the field house allows us to do a couple different things. It allows us to, it takes some events that are more well suited to a hardwood flooring, sports-specific facility, and we move them from the convention center, which has been a great home for them, over to the field house. It allows some of the events to grow into, for example, with basketball, the convention center has the capability of 4 courts, and now the field house will have 7 more. So either to move the entire event over to the field house, or now be in both, where they have 11 courts and they can double the size of the tournament. You talk about tourism, the amount of hotel rooms that's filling has now doubled. And what it's also allowing us to do, so we can better serve the groups that have already been here with us, that have been, loyal customers per se to the convention center, but partners for the city of Owensboro, us to provide them a better, even more growth in their experience. And it also is allowing us to attract some bigger name sporting groups. So some really big, just one example, AAU basketball circuits that maybe would have needed more courts and needed to be on hardwood floors are now looking at Owensboro. We're in really good conversations with them to have, really high level tournaments here in Owensboro that is bringing more people, that is putting more national eyes on Owensboro. And in a lot of cases, I think one example of this is the Grind Session basketball circuit that started here in December. It's funny how that came to be. They were supposed to be in Murray, and for some reason, the facility got booked over or something happened, and on like a week and a half notice, it got moved to the Sports Center. We helped do everything we could, along with the people at the convention center, along with the local schools, to promote that event. They got such a good turnout that now they're bringing 4 events to Owensboro in 2026, and hopefully more beyond that. And that's a national stage that our city's on. And it gets people, learning about Owensboro, coming to Owensboro, eating in our restaurants, visiting our local businesses. So sports tourism really does, benefit the whole community.
Brady, was that the one where they had this basketball social media influencer just show up out of nowhere and became
Yeah.
one?
I didn't even know he was coming prior to that. I didn't know anything about him, to be honest.
Jeff Esposito brought that up, I think. Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Jeff or JT did, one of the two.
Yeah, and I was not familiar with him, but apparently he's a big influencer. And when he showed up, you just saw this crowd of people just, all over him. And so that was kind of opened my eyes a little bit to about that particular the grind, and just understanding of how social media and I'm old, guys, so so when it comes to social media, I have a love-hate relationship with it, and I didn't grow up with it like you guys did. So I always find that pretty interesting. Who becomes like an influencer, and people will say, well, if you're on social media at all, you're kind of an influencer, but obviously there are people who do it bigger than others, and
the algorithm works in mysterious ways.
It
It
does.
does what it wants to do.
it does. So for you guys, how are you kind of preparing? Do you have people tentatively already scheduled for the field house?
Yeah, we do. We have all kinds of events and groups that either they'll have a hold on a certain date, or some of them have already moved into the contract stage. But we've filled up a good portion of the second half of 2026. And then 2027, we're working very hard at. We have a lot of dates that are already filled for 2027. Some groups, it's interesting with sports as well as conventions and other. I mean, a lot of these groups are booking 2, 3, 4 years out, and so we'll get requests for proposals for certain events that are in 2030. But yeah, it was. So we're working very hard. 2026 and 2027, we have a lot of dates that are filled, and then a lot more that are in the works of moving pieces around. Like we said, a lot of those are currently groups, not all of them, but a lot of them are groups that are currently in the convention center, and finding the right fit for them. Do we move them to the field house? Do we have them in both and let them double the size of their event? So, but yeah, we do. We have a lot of stuff that's already been booked.
Now, how does that dynamic work between you guys and let's say the folks who oversee Esposito's group?
Sure, yeah.
Do you kind of are you guys like in there kind of recruiting, and then once you have kind of a confirmation, and then you just hand them off to Esposito's group? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, for sure. It's a really collaborative group effort, and Daylin can speak on that from a marketing and an event standpoint in a different way than me. But as far as sports, they have their sales team, they have their event managers, And in a sense, we're a sales team as well. So sometimes we'll find a lead and we'll bring it to the table, and they'll find a lead and they'll bring it to the table. And we usually meet in person about once a week. I do with their sales managers and event managers, but there's a lot. I mean, we're on the phone and texting each other 5 days a week. So it's a really collaborative effort. We work very well together. It's really, respectful, and they are great to work with. And I think at the end, maybe we have a few different things in mind. We're looking at tourism hotels, but the end goal is the exact same thing.
Yeah,
We want to
that's
bring
what I was
quality
gonna say.
events to Owensboro. We want to grow the community of Owensboro, and both groups see that vision, and that's really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. Is we do work very, very closely with the convention center, mainly because we, like Lucas was saying, we have the same outcome or the same ideas. Like, we want people to stay in Owensboro because we want people, one, to see our town, but two, to have the idea of, oh, I love it here. I want to stay here, for my future and, seeing going forward. So we want to give them the experience that make sure that they have that mindset when they leave, because we want them to come back, obviously.
Yeah, and it's cool that you guys came here, went to KWC, and that you guys embrace this, because I live within a stone's throw from KWC, so I drive by it often, and it's a nice, beautiful campus, and it's, I guess, pretty intimate. I mean, I guess you might, I don't know if you know all, but you probably know many folks from there whenever you were there, and because I understand that there's a large percentage of students who are kind of like student athletes there.
Yeah.
And so what was it, about not only just KWC, but I mean, because I think that's a part of whenever you're looking at, college, because KWC is a smaller school, but so your UKs and your U of Ls,
Right.
and Roll Tide, right? And
Yeah.
so Alabama is, you can, that can, like when my daughters, they visited Mary, and they like Mary, but whenever they went up and visited UK and they saw like their gyms, because they like to work out and everything, they were like, okay, we're going to UK.
Right.
So I'm just kind of curious on, on that attraction for you guys, and then obviously enough to want to stick around.
Yeah. So I think, well, bowling is a little bit different because there's not very many big schools that have, bowling. So that was one thing. But another thing is it's really different when it comes to the teaching styles of larger schools and smaller schools. So what KWC really offers is a very intimate and basically a very close relationship with all of your professors and all of the staff that works there. I think that's one of their big things is when you go there, you're meeting people and professors and you're becoming friends with them afterwards, as like an adult relationship. Because I still have relationships from Wesleyan that I, will keep forever while I live here. They have always offered help and have always been there for me. So it's kind of that aspect of I'm gaining relationships during college, but also keeping them after as well. And I think big schools can't necessarily offer that just because of the size. So it's kind of a blessing going to a small school, even though, you look at it and you're like, man, Owensboro is really small. I'm not going to be able to do anything here. But as somebody that has went to school here and now works for Owensboro, I now see the potential and how much we offer that I didn't see when I first was in school. I mean, in my mind, when I'm in school, I was like, man, there's nothing to do. But there's, in reality, so much that we offer in Owensboro that people can kind of take a part of within the community.
So what was it, for you, Lucas, that drew you into KWC and then wanting to stay here? Because you're right. I mean, Evansville, there's it is a little bit larger area. Like I said earlier, they have a mall, that people actually go to still. But I'm biased because I grew up here, so to me, it's pretty cool every time I meet somebody who came in from the outside and stuck around.
I think one of the biggest driving factors was I saw how great of an experience my sister had at Kentucky Wesleyan. And I think I met a lot of people through her. It was interesting for me to get to college and she be friends with people that I played sports with or had class with, and we already had like mutual friends. But everyone that I met, as far as faculty and staff in athletics, but also outside of athletics, was really invested in me and what my goals were. And I felt that draw more there than anywhere else that I visited out of high school. And that's ultimately what led to me going there. And it's cool to see Daylin and I both have, adult faculty and staff members that we still see in our free time and still regularly, keep in touch with, and they've helped us out so much along the way. So I really think that speaks a lot to the experience that we had at Wesleyan and the fact that we're both still here in Owensboro. And I think that's one thing that especially our boss Mark has talked a lot about, but I'd like to be a really huge advocate of as well, is for the Wesleyan, and also it applies to Brescia as well, for students in the Owensboro area to recognize that you don't necessarily have to go off to Nashville or Louisville or Indianapolis to get a job, because sometimes it feels like you have to do that, and I hope that it's in the exact same and vice versa, that local employers recognize how much potential there is out of these local schools, and they both pursue, the connections and the networking during their college time to stay here after, and recognize the opportunity that these are young individuals who just gained 4 really valuable years of experience and growth within their community, and a lot of them now want to give back to your community. So I hope that a lot of people continue to recognize that and kind of, reach out and offer these opportunities to individuals like Daylin and I, because we're really grateful for it. And I think that there's a lot of young individuals who have a lot to offer here in the Owensboro community.
Yeah, and that probably helps in your, I don't want to call it a sales pitch, but I mean, whenever you guys are trying to recruit, events, you guys do spend some time here, so you can, it's not like you just moved here yesterday. So, I mean, at least you can offer some insight on what we have and what to look for. And growing up here, I can tell you we have a lot more going on than whenever I was, growing up here. So, Freddie, do you have some notes over there, man?
When you all ended up getting into these positions, I mean, were there certain things? Obviously, I would imagine you probably knew what a visitors bureau was, but what are some things that maybe were not immediate, like something that you learned as you were going through it, like, oh, this is why this is the way they do it, like why visitors bureau do this? Were there certain like learning curves when you realized like maybe like why is it the way it is, and then you were like, oh, this is why there's a science to it, we're doing it just because, like there's a science and there's a meaning and there's reason behind the decisions we make and why things are done the way they're done?
I think from a sports perspective, I'll speak on first, studying sports management and then business and then college athletics throughout my time in college, I knew what all went into putting on a sporting event, and there's countless details from a business perspective and an event management perspective. But one side of that, to be honest, I had not considered a whole lot, was the Visitors Bureau side and the impact that economically it can have on the city as a whole, the impact that it can have as far as growth for the city. I mean, you bring in people, and we have people that come here for sporting events, and they'll recognize the potential that our city has, and that person might turn around and bring a small convention here a couple years later, or they might decide, hey, this is a good place to maybe branch out and bring my business to, or the things, the amount of examples of that we've seen are kind of endless. And so there's so many ways that you can view sports tourism, but as well as the other events we have. And I think the biggest thing that we try to explain to our community is that, I think sometimes it can be seen, if I were to bring in like a big travel tournament and it's booking the facility that, could be used for local groups to play on, you might see it as, well, they're coming here and they're using our resources and they're taking away from our community. But we try to be really collaborative with the groups that come here and make sure that they're here to add value to our community rather than to just take away from it. So really viewing the community and tourism perspective of sports business is not something that I had known a whole lot about. And I'm sure Daylin has seen different examples in the work that she does.
Yeah, so I just recently took Dave Kirk's job. So I have been kind of learning as I go. So he kind of was my mentor when I was first in the office. And now after he's left, I've kind of had to feel it out for myself. So there's a lot of different things that I feel like I didn't realize made as big of an impact as it did. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, I'm writing, silly little blogs and nobody's looking at them. But in reality, people from like all over are looking at these blogs to find out information about Owensboro, to come back to Owensboro, or to, I want to spend a weekend there. So what's going on this weekend kind of thing. So I think it's been kind of just me putting my feelers out and still kind of learning what is making an impact and what is not. Because I feel like some things that I do that really aren't reaching people, but I need to learn that, maybe this way works a little bit better than this other way. So that's been kind of some things that I've been working around and trying to figure out as I'm kind of growing in this position. Because Dave, when he first started, also was new like I was. He started in journalism. So he wasn't necessarily in the, visitor bureau kind of area either.
Right.
And so I kind of feel like we're starting off in the same area, except for the fact that Dave has built a lot more for me to kind of work off of than what he had.
Yeah, I was going to say to that point, though, like, Dave has had a history there.
Yeah.
You're starting your history there, or better,
Yes.
you're going to have, Lucas, you're saying, but has that been, when you do approach folks that, that have worked with the CVB before, is that a difficult conversation? Because obviously I would imagine they got familiar with folks that were there, and so they're like, there's probably a new building of trust, even though they trust the CVB. They're like, well, I don't know this person, so I'm going to feel them out a little bit. What is that like for you all, kind of building those relationships again, rather? Because, I mean, they're kind of investing again, like, well, now I'm going to invest with CVB, but now you're going to be my pinpoint person, so I need to kind of know a little bit more about you.
Yes. So specifically with marketing, it definitely has been really hard because, like you were saying, people do trust the CVB, but it's just the matter of, do they trust me? And so kind of gaining those relationships has been really difficult but fulfilling. I feel like once people get to know me or Lucas, it kind of ends up being a really good relationship, and they want to work with us more. One, knowing that we're young, that we're working really hard, but also two, that we still have the same ideals as the previous person before. We still want to, make sure that we're taking care of them as our clients. If, they are doing something for us, they want to take care of us, knowing that they knew the person previous. So it's kind of been, a wild ride, but also I feel like we have been able to kind of handle all of the curveballs that have been thrown at us.
And you're not just having to do the sports. I mean, because we have the bluegrass, you got the bourbon, you got, the city itself, you got the downtown areas. So I mean, you're having to promote all that too, right?
Yes,
at the same time. So
yes. It's definitely like I'm putting my hand in everything.
So kind of talk about that aspect of it. I mean, I know the city's, made a big push, with the bourbon, the barbecue, and the bluegrass. And for a city like Owensboro, I guess technically we have an interstate now.
Yeah.
But that was always sort of the rub is we don't have, I-65 running through us.
Correct. You'll have to want to stop in Owensboro to stop in Owensboro.
Yeah. So has that conversation changed at all?
I feel like we're still kind of in that same area where it's like we have to create events and reasons for people to stop in Owensboro, which I think as a city we have done a really, really good job at. Obviously, we've had the International Barbecue Fest, but now we have Barbecue and Barrels, and that's been a huge staple. And of course, Romp as well. And like you were saying, a lot of these things are not necessarily us, but we help promote them. And so there's a very fine line of how much we promote of each. And that's been kind of something that I've had to work with as well, because, you don't want to highlight the bluegrass more than, the bourbon, the distillery that we have here, because they're both equally important. Yet they have, different ways of reaching people.
The thing with obviously the bluegrass is you can say Nobody else has that.
Correct.
You
We're
know.
we're the only place that has a bluegrass museum.
Where there are other distilleries, and and of course we're part of the trail, the bourbon trail, and all that. But I've always thought that being able to have that, the museum and the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
that
It's a
that is
huge asset.
yeah, it's a huge feather because you're getting big names, not only in bluegrass but kind of country folk and all
Yeah.
that, and I would hope to think that it almost sells itself, but
Yeah. Yeah. For the most part.
so I just kind of wondered at how much you guys are out there promoting that.
Yeah.
And with that idea of nobody else has this.
Yeah, and that's definitely within like the conventions kind of aspect. Teresa does a really, really good job at selling that. That's one of the biggest selling points, especially for like we have Surfa, which is coming up, which is a really large music bluegrass conference. She does such a good job at selling that we have the only bluegrass museum. And it's, like I was saying, one of the biggest assets that we have when it comes to selling. With Green River, they're the 10th oldest distillery in Kentucky. So that's a really huge point that we like to hit on as well. We have, the Western Botanical Gardens. So there's just different things that we market to different people. I think that's what kind of helps. Because, like I said, Teresa likes to market that. But Lucas, on the other hand, is going to market, or we're going to market more like Maui's, which is new, that all of the sports kind of fans and, athletes can go to in their leisure time when they have the time. So it's kind of just picking the right asset for the right client, basically.
Yeah, and the local partners like the Bluegrass Museum and like you said, the distillery, Owensboro Racing Gaming, there's a countless list. They do such a good job of collaborating with us and recognizing, well, the Bluegrass Museum, like you said, they do a really good job of selling themselves in that they're constantly rotating out the content that they have available at their museum for guests to explore. But yeah, it's, we do a lot of, even in the sports side of things, things to do while you're in Owensboro packet. And that looks different for every single group that I work with. And you're trying to get tournament directors to push us out to parents and families. And I think without that collaboration from our local partners, it would be a much more difficult time. And I know it doesn't work that well in every single city from what I've heard in the tourism and travel industry. So everyone does such a good job in this community of working with us. And, we wouldn't be able to bring in as many people as we do without their help.
Yeah.
Now, is there, we have the different social media platforms. Is there one, you've got TikTok now, that seems to be where the younger audience, and of course you have Instagram, of course Facebook. I don't know if there are any other social media platforms that I'm not aware of that you guys use as well. And I'm assuming that's part of your job is posting stuff and on all the social media platforms, and for me that would be overwhelming.
It is kind of overwhelming, I do have to say, but that's also kind of the fun part about my job too, is like I kind of get to bebop on social media all the time, which, again, sometimes it's really stressful trying to kind of figure out where everything needs to go. So, to your point, like Facebook is one of the most important ones, I think. It hits a good majority of audiences. It hits the older and kind of sort of the people our age. I know, Lucas, you're not on Facebook very often, but it kind of hits people in all kind of areas. But with like TikTok, for example, more of the younger audience is going to be
You got to be a little
there.
bit more creative with that though, right?
Yes. And I think that's also what we've been kind of trying to do marketing wise. Nicole Ferris, I don't know if you know Rick Ferris. He is, yes. So she works in our office now as well. And so we have been kind of trying to collaborate together and create videos that are more storytelling and kind of more interesting to watch, because most people only have the attention span of like 2 to 3 seconds.
You look at
scrolling.
you look at the analytics. I mean, you put out like a minute video, you read those analytics.
Yep.
People are usually dropping out within the first 15 seconds. Yeah, it's you're pretty much trial and error.
Yeah.
And the other, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was gonna say regarding you mentioned about Dawn about the creativity. It's interesting because even in my own putting like clips or promos on,
Yeah.
and it could be the same promo on different platforms.
They do differently.
Very different reaction. You can have something does really well on Instagram,
Yep.
and it completely tanks on Facebook, or does really well on TikTok. But it's also interesting when you also see comments. There's people like you can go to YouTube and put like a short out there, and people are very complimentary. You put it on
Yes.
TikTok, and people
Like,
are
this
ready.
is crap.
Yeah, they're ready
Yeah.
to pounce and like get on you about like how could this isn't funny, or what the heck is this?
Yes.
Like, it's so interesting that like you can put something out and it's like, oh, so this gives me a good idea that. I always feel like if you have friction, it means you have something good.
Correct.
Because at least they're having a reaction out
Correct.
of it, right?
Correct. And that's also just been a huge learning kind of curve for me, because obviously I've always been on social media all the time, but it's like it's different when it comes to, you know, kind of marketing and pushing something that you want people to see. So I definitely have had that where I've posted the same thing on TikTok and Instagram does a million times better than Facebook or TikTok. So that's kind of something that we have been trying to work on as of recently, because I don't think, you know, when Dave left, I don't think he had that in mind, just because, you know, I think social media is growing recently. As of recently, it's been, you know, kind of a steady upward battle with, you know, what works and what doesn't work. And so you kind of have to work it out as you go.
And then you got to think about AI and how many of those promos you're putting out are, yep, I already see the faces.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you don't know what's real and what's not real
Yeah.
sometimes.
And there's a lot of things. I think a lot of people that we work with that like to use AI, and me and Lucas, I mean, we both can spot it instantly. And so
I think a lot of people think that when they make a graphic on ChatGPT that other people cannot tell that it was
Correct.
made there. It's really obvious.
not the
And so,
case.
you know, I think there's something to be said about human creativity. And even if one thing I would always be a huge advocate of, as someone who, alongside the rest of our staff, has learned to use Canva and video editing and CapCut and all that stuff, an unexperienced, honest, true effort by a human to make something will always have my respect over something that was like typed into a prompt. And
100%.
you know, I think that viewers recognize that
Yeah.
and have respect for the effort you're putting in.
Yeah.
And so I really hope that, you know, that stays prevalent in society still.
Yes.
Yeah, I do too.
100% agree.
Yeah, and then what's frustrating is, you know, there's stories that either myself or my reporters have worked, put in hours on, and get no feedback whatsoever. But then something that's really trivial will get thousands of comments about, and it's, you know, and it's like, what, you know, what's going on here? You know, what, you know, things that matter, you know, nothing, crickets.
Yeah.
And then there are things that I would think was a story, but at the end of the day, you know, is just information, but not necessarily. I haven't seen like how your story's done that you did on Maui's, but you know, I'm sure there's a lot of anticipation
Yeah.
about that opening.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just interesting how social media works in that way. Freddie, you got any kind of last questions here?
The reality is, I think your jobs are not typical 9 to 5
Yeah.
gigs, and I think a lot of people might not realize that. They might see you.
100%.
They might see you. Like, for example, I think Daylin, I think I saw you at Friday After 5 announcement,
Yeah.
and you were filming on the phone, and I can imagine there's probably someone that's, you know, in the crowd that doesn't know who you are, who I am,
Yep.
and they're looking at the two of us. Here's me
Like,
with
what are
a with a
these
hand over.
losers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, what are they're just hanging out, and
Yeah.
they're getting paid just to record the audio or
Right.
record this thing, and it's like, no. Well, first off, what I'm recording is going to go out somewhere. What you're filming is going
Yeah.
to go out somewhere, and there's going to take time and effort to make that happen. But then
Yep.
also, you're not just, you know, in the. I mean, I think when I even booked you all for this interview was the second, which to be fair was my fault for not thinking ahead on that. It was the second week. It was the second day of Burger Week.
Yeah.
And they were judging.
Yeah.
Both her and Lucas were helping.
I was in
with
the middle of cutting burgers.
And here I am just like, hey, and then I immediately was like, Daylin, like, because I can tell she thought, and she was ready, like, okay, let's get a date together. And I was like, no, I'm just letting you know this is what we have available. We can touch base. I just wanted to like make sure you guys were interested.
I most definitely, like, when you came in, I was like, I need to get this scheduled now or I'm going to forget about it.
Well, because Lucas started putting his stuff down. He's like, hold on this for a second. I'll take a look at my schedule. I'm like, Lucas, no, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. So, but having said that, the long-winded way of bringing this up, I mean, you do a lot out of the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would imagine you all kind of anticipated that. But what do you enjoy about it? Because, I mean, obviously, this work is not for the faint of heart. So clearly there's a passion and motivation. What is it about this work that excites you, that makes you go, hey, I don't mind spending a Saturday doing barbecues and barrels and helping volunteer my time, even though it's part of the job? Like, you know, what do you all really get out of it?
Yeah, whether it's showing up at 6 a.m. on a weekend or being in a gym until 11:30 p.m. and but no, I think the two biggest factors that really drive me on a day-to-day basis is there's such a big variety in what we see and do, and as you all touched on, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. So you're constantly having to be creative and think on the spot and come up with solutions of how we can best promote an event, how we can best implement it into our community and get our community involved. And so that variety is something that you don't get in every single profession. And I'm really thankful that I show up to work and I'm doing 8 different things. And the next day I could be working on 8 different things.
Yeah.
And it really keeps you on your toes, and it's tiring at times, but it's really rewarding. And I think the other aspect of it that makes our jobs so special is when you see it all come to fruition and you see the impact that it has on your community. I know for a lot of our events, you'll do an economic impact like estimate before the event, where we're calculating numbers on paper. We're saying this is what we think this will do for our community. But then when you see it and you see people actually show up and you see them out at your restaurants and you see your community partners and businesses happy with the collaboration they're having with these people that are coming to visit Owensboro, and you see these people come into Owensboro and realize how special our city is, that's when, you know, it makes a lot of it worth it. So seeing the impact that you have and having such a cool variety in people we get to meet and work with, it really makes the job special.
No, that's 100% it. As I mean, like, every day is different. I'm not like today we're doing a podcast, but tomorrow I'm probably going to be filming a video on burgoo, you know, or, you know, Friday I am going to be bebopping around eating food and, like, you know, asking people what they're eating. So it's just so much fun to be able to go and do all of these things, because as a normal person, you don't get the opportunity to go to Romp and, you know, have a VIP ticket, or you don't get the opportunity to go to the bourbon experience and see everybody's individual reactions to our town. And it's just so much fun to be able to have these opportunities to sell our city, but also enjoy it for myself.
If you're a person like me who doesn't like monotony, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I've done this, you know, for so long. Is, you know, it kind of sounds kind of similar. You guys, from day to day, you're going to be doing something different. There's not a whole lot of monotony to it. You know, you mentioned burgoo. Was the first time you guys ever ate? I'm assuming you've eaten burgoo. I mean, when you came here?
Lucas,
I have not had it yet, I don't think.
Oh my God! Well,
this is the week.
This is the week.
Right.
People have a really negative connotation with mutton. I don't know if it's just because, like, the sheep that they've had before has been, like, really gamey. I don't know, but the mutton that we do in Owensboro is so different. And I'm a picky person. I'm not a big, like, you know, I'm going to try a bunch of different things. But mutton and burgoo, so good. And I wouldn't have known about it unless I came here.
Yeah, Lucas, man. And what you'll realize, it's kind of like burgoo. You know, it's not, I mean, it's a soup, obviously, right? But it's never the same wherever you have it.
Correct.
Okay.
And so so that's one thing you'll find if you try different varieties, depending on who's making it.
Yeah.
You know, there's some vegetables in it. The one that I do not, the one that I do not like, it they put the big beans in it.
Oh.
Lima beans.
Oh.
Yeah, there's some that put the lima beans in. Some of the cooking teams used to do that, because back in the day when we had the actual barbecue festival, there was even if I knew it, I wouldn't call them out on it. But there was one I stayed away from because they put lima beans in it. I was like, I'm not eating lima.
Hey, we still have the cooking teams this year.
Do you? Okay,
that
cool.
tradition is still here.
Yeah.
So,
I wasn't sure because I know a lot of those guys, are older and like anything else, it's tough to get the newer generation,
yeah,
to come and help and volunteer because that's a lot of work.
it is.
But anyway, you'll see that if you try different varieties, they're all going to be different.
Yeah.
And growing up here, there's always, you're introduced to mutton and burger at a very early age, and so it's interesting to hear people talk about it, whenever they've never had it before and
Yeah.
they try it for the first time. And was that the first time, Freddie, you tried burger coming here, or did you?
Yeah, no, it was actually at I think it was a Goodfellows soup day we had here.
Oh.
in the
Okay,
office.
'cause-
I think it was the first year I
Yeah,
was
Freddie's
here.
from New Jersey.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
he was raised on Jersey Mike's, right?
Yep. Ate it every day.
Oh, there you go.
That's all they eat there.
Yep.
So what did you think about burger whenever you first?
No, I mean I enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean I didn't know what the expectation was.
Yeah.
But I mean I'm adventurous enough to try some anything really.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I asked what is it in it, and I was told, and I was like, that sounds like everything I would normally eat
Yeah.
separately. So why
Yeah.
not?
Why not put it all together?
Yeah, why not?
Exactly,
It sounds fine.
So you'll have your preferences, and the only one that I refused to eat was the one with the lima beans. But other than that, because you'll have some that will have more of the sheep in it, or some will have more vegetables in it. Some will be a little bit more spicier than others.
Yeah.
More, ours is the vinegar-based barbecue too, and not the ketchup-based barbecue
Right.
that they have. I guess maybe in was it Kansas City, those type places. But anyway. So yeah, this is of course this way after the barbecue and barrels, but that is one of our bigger events where all those sorts of
There's so much tradition in our barbecue, and I know people are just like, it's just barbecue, but no, there's so much that goes into specifically our barbecue in Owensboro. Just going back to the mutton and having just the sheep that we have on the land, and they've just decided, hey, we're gonna eat sheep instead of doing regular beef.
Yeah.
So it's definitely really cool to see that we have still held on to the tradition of our mutton and our barbecue in Owensboro.
The people that come in from out of town always really appreciative and acknowledge and give us really strong feedback on the food scene here in
Yeah.
Owensboro. And I think if you're in this community for your whole life, you can kind of, I don't want to say take it for granted, but it's just the norm. And you
Yeah.
don't really acknowledge wow, that was a really special experience for someone that came in from out of town. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything we haven't talked about you guys want to put out there real quick?
No, I mean, one thing I do want to say is, all the people that are constantly, if they see us out in the community, provide us with feedback or
Yeah.
engage with us or just talk to us about our events, we're always very appreciative of that. And it happens a lot. And, Daylin always points out, we'll film a silly little video and then you'll be walking and I'll go get dinner at night and some seemingly random person will recognize me and I'm like, I'm not famous. But that, what we do seems to mean something to you guys, and your guys' feedback means a whole lot to us. And so if you ever see us out in the community, come say hi to us.
Yeah.
Come talk to us about ideas that you have. We're very open-minded and we love to, get creative with things. And so we really appreciate all of that from our community and all the partners that work so well with us.
Yeah, and we want to continue to bring events that people in the community want to see, and I feel like we have the opportunity to do that for people. And so anytime, like Lucas is saying, anytime anybody sees us, if you have an idea or you think another little silly video is going to make it even better, then you just let us know, because we do love what we do, and we love that people see us in the community. And we want to make sure that, we hear everybody, not just, the people that we have in front of us.
Yeah. And I guess that will do it for us. For Lucas Daunhauer, Daylin Tolgo, and Freddie Bourne, I'm Don Wilkins, and this is Inquire.
Thank you to Brescia University for sponsoring this episode of Inquire.